starting off this countdown, we have Alice in Chains. And I'm not talking about the band here. I'm talking about Alice from Alice in Wonderland. Theory goes that the only person in the movie that is actually mad is Alice. And in fact, she is a patient at a mental asylum. She suffers from schizophrenia, and everything we see in the movie is just all one big hallucination. Now, every character that we see is a personification of other conditions that she suffers from. For example, the White Rabbit is her anxiety, the Mad Hatter is her ADHD, and the Queen of Hearts is narcissistic personality disorder. So, Alice is chained up in her room all day hallucinating from the drugs she was given. In our 9th spot, we have Aladdin. Now this is a popular theory, so you might have heard it already. But theory goes that Aladdin takes place 10,000 years in a post-apocalyptic future. There's actually quite a lot of evidence to support this. For starters, when Genie comes out of the lamp, he said he's been in there for 10,000 years. Yet he's making modern day references like doing an impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Jack Nicholson, meaning he must have been around during that time if he knows who they are. But then 10,000 years has passed, meaning it's 10,000 years in the future. But the world doesn't look so advanced besides magic carpets. So it's thought an apocalypse wiped out humanity. What happened exactly? Well, in an Aladdin video game, in one of the levels you can see an unexploded atomic bomb. So maybe a nuclear war wiped out humanity. Those that survived had to rebuild society. Coming in at number 8, we have Moana. Moana was the movie of the summer a couple of years ago. Kids loved it, and I can't lie, the songs were pretty catchy. Like, I didn't even know The Rock could sing. Anyways, it may just be that Moana is pretty much dead for most of the film. So theory goes that when Moana goes on her adventure, she gets killed in the big storm. Since she's no longer living, she can access a magical otherworld. That's where she meets Maui. That's why during her adventure, she doesn't interact with any normal humans, cause she's not alive. And it's also why she sees the spirit of her grandmother and ancestors at the end of the movie as she sails her boat, cause she did. Moving on to number 7, we have Grumpy. Ever wonder why all the dwarves in Snow White are upbeat and happy? All except one, Grumpy? Why is he so grumpy? Obviously he wasn't just born and was like goo goo gaga, I hate people. No, something must have happened. In fact, in the show Once Upon a Time, they made it so Grumpy was once called Dreamy. After losing his lover, he became sour and his name changed to Grumpy. So maybe this is the case. His lover passed away in a tragic accident and it completely changed his life. He now has trust issues and doesn't want to get too close to people as he fears they too will be ripped away from him. So he has his guards up and avoids making personal connections with others. Grumpy just doesn't want to get his heart broken again. Making our way down the list, number 6, we have Winnie the Pooh. Everyone loves that honey-loving, crop-top-wearing, cuddly bear. But sorry, this theory is going to change the way you look at everything. So theory goes that every character in Winnie the Pooh suffers from a different mental illness. Let's start with Pooh. He suffers from compulsive eating disorder and OCD. For starters, he is obsessed with honey, he dreams about it, and eats far too much of it. Then we see that he has a habit of repetitive counting. That's his OCD. Then we have Piglet, which represents a generalized anxiety disorder. Piglet is always worrying and even has an anxious ear twitch. Eeyore is clearly depression. Don't need to explain that one, you can clearly tell that he's depressed. Owl is dyslexia because he has trouble reading, and also narcissism since he often thinks he is wiser than others. Kanga has social anxiety disorder, which is why she's so overprotective of her son. Tigger has ADHD, which is why he's bouncing everywhere all the time. And Christopher Robin, well, he has schizophrenia and imagines all of his friends. His friends appear depending on what state he's in. For example, if he's more anxious, then Piglet will appear. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with Jack syndrome. Okay, this theory is really gonna throw you for a loop, and you gotta pay attention. So, in the first Incredibles, we see Syndrome dies after his cape gets sucked into a plane's turbine. But did he really die? I mean, the dude was a genius. His inventions were really out there. Who says that he didn't invent something to help him get out of that situation? Although it seemed like he died maybe he's still alive. In fact, people think that Syndrome is a super himself. He just hasn't channeled his powers yet. So let's take a look at the supers mentioned on the Incredibles bonus CD. The super Psych Wave looks an awful lot like Syndrome. Like, they have the same color hair and their eyes are the same. It also shows that her intelligence level is the highest out of all supers. And her team owned a secret base on a remote island that now belongs to Syndrome. This can't all be a coincidence. Syndrome inherited his intelligence from his mother and some of her powers, but he doesn't know it yet. But while his cape was getting sucked into the turbine, that's when his powers got activated. It also says that Psych Wave has the power to possess another person's body. So what if, just as he was about to die, he possessed the closest person's body to him, Jack Jack, meaning his physical body was destroyed, but now he became Jack Jack. Soon he will get revenge on the Incredibles. I know, it's complicated, but it kinda makes sense. And at number 4, we have the skinned Sully. All you Monsters Inc. fans, brace yourself for this one. Sully is dead. He has died. So in Monsters Inc., Randall always mentions how bad humans are. At one point, he says that humans skin monsters and make toilet seat covers out of their fur. Sadly, this foreshadowed the fate of our friend Sully. In a Toy Story short called Toy Story Toons Partysaurus Rex, there's a scene where the kid is taking a bubble bath. And lo and behold, on the toilet seat in the bathroom is a fuzzy Sully seat cover. So Randall was right, humans do skin the monsters and turn them into toilet seat covers. Poor Sully, he let his guard down with Boo and ended up getting skinned alive. Coming in at number 3, we have the Illuminati numbers. What a lot of us may not have noticed is that in almost every Disney Pixar movie, they have the hidden code A113 in it. For example, in Toy Story, Andy's mother's car's license plate is A113. In Finding Nemo, the camera's model is A113. This code is also Mater's license plate in Cars, is seen on a box in A Bug's Life, and on a rat's ear in Ratatouille. It's also the code for the Abandoned Earth Protocol in WALL-E. So what is this code and what does it mean? Well, theory goes that it represents a secret Illuminati code. It's theorized that this code means something much darker than we realize. But in reality, A113 is the classroom number at the California Institute of Arts, the classroom where many animators at Pixar and Disney once worked. Or so that's what they want you to think. Moving on to number 2, we have the experiments. So Reddit user Fan Theory Spoiler created this theory, and now it's got me rethinking everything. If it's true, then Disney Pixar is dark. So in Monsters Inc. we find out that Randall and Waternoose have been experimenting on kids. In one scene we see them capture Boo and try to experiment on her before being stopped. But this Reddit user believes that they have been experimenting on Boo for years. Here's the evidence. So first off, when Sully meets Boo for the first time, she isn't in bed like the other kids. She's fully dressed, which is weird considering it's the middle of the night. It seems like Boo knew what was going to happen and was prepping for it. And then we have the scene where Sully and Boo chase after Randall to go save Mike. Randall turns a corner and disappears. Sully tries to figure out where he went, whereas Boo just flicks a tool that opens up a secret panel, as if she knew it from before, from being there before. Now, how long has Randall been doing this? Well, at the end of the movie, we find out that Rox has been undercover for 2.5 years. So one can assume it's been that long. Poor Boo. And in our number 1 spot, we have Mary Poppy Wise. People are getting more and more creative these days. Just wait till you hear this next theory. So posted on Reddit by the user Humanoid Mold 5, they believe that Mary Poppins and Pennywise the Clown from It are the same species. It's hard to believe, but there's some pretty solid evidence supporting it. So first off, both characters have the same power. They both manipulate young children's minds. Mary taps into their imagination, Pennywise manipulates them with their fears. Furthermore, both of them return after 20-something years to the same group of kids. In Mary Poppins Returns, she returns to the Banks family, and in Pennywise, he returns back to the Loser Club. Then we have the fact that both the Banks family and the Loser Club forget about them. The Banks family remembers Mary Poppins, but not that she's magical. The The loser club forget their childhoods almost altogether until Pennywise returns. And last but not least, we have the balloons. Obviously, Pennywise has his signature red balloons, and he has the saying, "You'll float too." In Mary Poppins Returns, the characters grab balloons and float into the air. Coincidence? I think not. Mary Poppins and Pennywise are related. Starting off this countdown, we have the Great Purge. Ever wonder why there are no humans in Zootopia? Or any other domesticated animals like dogs or cats? Well, there's a theory that suggests that Zootopia takes place in the future after these evolved forms of animals have overthrown humanity. The species evolved to the point that they could talk and walk just like humans. However, after thousands of years of being treated poorly by humans, they snapped and there was just a huge uprising. As a result, the animals won and the human race perished. Now, what about the pets like dogs and cats? Well, those animals remained loyal to us and fought by our side. But unfortunately, the animals ended up wiping out those species as well. There are also no primates shown in the movie. Well, that's because they resemble humans a little too much, and so they decided to wipe them out as well. Now, I am well aware that there is a corgi present in the UK version of the film. Turns out that corgi was a traitor and helped lead the forces to destroy humanity. Making our way down the list at number 9, we have the animal-human hybrids. This theory changes the game a little bit and suggests that humans were the reason why humanity got wiped out. So humans started experimenting with animals by putting human DNA into them to see what would happen. As a result, animals were being formed with some human traits like bipedalism, speech, opposable thumbs, and higher cognitive abilities. If you see the animals in Zootopia, they can talk, they wear clothes, and they have fingers instead of paws. The best piece of evidence to support this is the fact that they can walk upright. For example, if you take an animal that walks on all fours and make them walk upright, they would still have a bend in their legs. In the movie, they look like they just walk perfectly fine, like humans. Then this theory ties with the previously mentioned one, but takes a little bit of a twist. So these new hybrid animals saw just how poorly humans were treating their wild counterparts, and they were disgusted by it. With their new abilities, they plotted the scheme to revolt against humanity and kill them off. Then they targeted pets and cats that had a luxury life living with the humans. And then they targeted the primates so that they don't evolve into humans. In our 8th spot, we have the predator's meals. Alright, there are some predators that can't survive without meat. And as we have seen by Alex the Lion in Madagascar, animals can get pretty crazy if they go a long period of time without meat. But in Zootopia, predators can't eat their prey. So, what do they eat? Well, it's theorized that the government has a secret food manufacturing plant just for the predators. In these facilities are the cats, dogs, primates, and other animals that aren't present in the film. These animals are constantly being bred underground and then killed for the predators. That is what they keep eating. However, to keep the prey calm, they don't know about this underground food facility. They are convinced that they are just living off of bugs and fish. Well, in one scene, we see a sign announcing a fish market, so we know that there are fish that they actually eat. The government started this facility after they learned that predators couldn't get rid of their itch for meat. So, there you go. That could be a reason why certain animals just aren't shown in the movie. They're someone's meal. Moving on at number 7, we have mass extinction. So, this is another theory surrounding the absence of humans in the film. People were convinced that a pandemic wiped out all of humanity, but it didn't affect the animals. Instead, it caused them to mutate, and over the years they evolved into species with human characteristics. In their new forms, they needed a new lifestyle. Well, they ended up building their civilization based on the remains of ours. Then they decided to use our previous societal structures as their own, like having a government and police officers, etc. So basically, humans went extinct, and then the animals were all like, let's forget about our old ways. I'm tired of sleeping outside. Let's copy the humans and get a cozy bed and then wear some stylish clothes. Moving on at number 6, we have the violent world. Ever wonder what Zootopia was like before the animals lived harmoniously together? Well, people theorize it was a crazy world with tons of bloodshed and violence. At the beginning of the movie, we see young Judy explaining that Zootopia was the place where all animals came together for the first time to live in harmony. Meaning that before that, their society was filled with constant violence and animals just constantly attacking each other. Judy even says that bloodlust and treachery were the forces that ruled their world. It must have gotten so bad that they desperately needed a solution to protect themselves. Zootopia was one of the attempts at this that actually worked. Then other towns like Bunnyborough are slowly adapting to this way as well. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the lab experiments. Basically, this theory suggests that Zootopia takes place in a lab. In this lab, humans are studying genetically modified animals. It is said that they took species from all over the world and mutated them to see if they could ever live together in peace. They are then observing their behaviors and patterns. Then, every so often, they introduce a new challenge for them to overcome. Like the whole night howlers drug issue that caused some animals to turn aggressive. So let's look at the facts. The whole city is climate controlled, meaning that it can fit the needs of different animals that lived in different environments. In this movie, you could see elephants and sloths, lions, polar bears, snow leopards, and more animals from different locations all around the world living together. How on earth did they all come together from different places to this one specific place? And how can they all live in the same climate? 3 words. It's a lab. And now let's take a look at the name of the place itself. Zootopia. Zoos are where animals are held in captivity on display for the public for study or amusement, just like the scientists are doing. And I mean, I doubt the animals like being contained in zoos. So why would they name their own town after them? Unless it was created by scientists. Boom. Next up at number 4, we have the taming party. Okay, don't be fooled. Just because it has the word party in it does not mean it's a happy celebration. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When Zootopia was released on Blu-ray and DVD, fans were horrified when they watched the deleted scene titled The Taming Party. Basically, this scene showed a bear coming of age and receiving a shock collar as a gift. It is then implied that shock collars is what keeps the predators tame. Basically, whenever the predators are overexpressing themselves, even if they're just being too excited, then they'll get a shock. Whew, Disney, that's pretty dark. But it was actually removed from the film, meaning that this concept no longer applies to the film. However, it didn't stop fans from making theories surrounding it. So here's one theory. In order to try and make peace between the predators and prey, the government came up with the shock collars. Basically, they began by kidnapping young predators like bears and tigers and forced them to live in Zootopia with the collars. As they got older and had kids of their own, they continued to keep the tradition going with the collars. If they didn't, then they would have been killed. Then Zootopia was populated with both predators and prey. From the success of the experiments, the concept spread to other cities. During this deleted scene, you can hear the animals say, "With this collar, Zootopia welcomes me. With this collar, Zootopia celebrates me. And with this collar, Zootopia accepts me." Basically, you're only accepted into Zootopia if you wear the taming collar and are well behaved. Moving on, in our 3rd spot, we have the dead corpses. So this is another theory surrounding what the predator animals eat. This time, it's way more dark and disturbing. This theory suggests that the carnivorous animals in Zootopia eat human corpses. Whew! Yikes. So if the species did evolve after the mass extinction of humans, then there would be an awful lot of dead bodies lying around for them to clean up. Instead of burying the dead, they ended up creating a facility that basically grinds up the bodies into meals for the predator animals, the ones that eat meat. That way, they are still getting their meat, but they aren't attacking the prey. It's really disturbing if you think about it. Coming in at our 2nd spot, we have the killing spree. So in the film, we see that the night howler flowers are capable of turning the predator animals aggressive and violent. Well, what happens if humans were exposed to this flower? What effects would it have on us? Well, it is said that humans did become exposed to the flower and went on a killing spree. They ended up turning mad and went on a rampage, killing their own. As a result of the exposure to the flower, it killed off the whole human species, leaving only the animals left to rule the world. And in our number 1 spot, we have the drug conspiracy theory. Towards the end of the movie, it is revealed, spoiler alert, that the assistant mayor, a white sheep, has been an evil mastermind all along. She has been infecting animal predators with a serum called night howlers, which makes them regain their predator instincts and become violent again. Well, people claim that this plot is very similar to the 1980s drug epidemic in America. Basically, there's a conspiracy saying that the CIA intentionally introduced cocaine into minority groups in order to destroy them and have people fear them and turn against them. In the movie Zootopia, the predators are the minority. She introduces the drug into their groups, and she used the predators' pre-existing stereotypes to try and get the population to turn against them. Yeah, that's a pretty eerie connection. Starting off this countdown, we have the society. Theory goes that every character in Zootopia represents a different aspect of society. For example, the sloths working at the DMV represent how slow that place always is. Then you have Mayor Lionheart, who represents the fact that figures of power tend to hide secrets from the public. In the movie, he knew all about the animals that turned savage, but was hiding this information from the town members. Then you have the police force, aka the boys club. It highlights how the police force is a male-dominated profession that doesn't take female officers seriously. And lastly, you have the hamsters. In the film, you see a bunch of them dressed identically leave their work office and all move in sync. Well, they highlight the typical life of a 9-to-5 worker. They all have the same lifestyle, which includes waking up, going to work, going home, going to sleep, and it's just a continual cycle. They eat, sleep, and breathe work. Moving on to number 9, we have the universe. There's a theory out there that The Lion King, Robin Hood, and Zootopia all exist in the same universe. So they believe that Nick Wilde is related to Robin Hood. He is one of Robin Hood's descendants. Then they state that Mayor Lionhead is related to Simba and King Richard and Prince John from Robin Hood. The Lion King shows the events between the predators and the prey that occurred before Zootopia. Then eventually, the animals evolved, and Lionheart became the mayor to carry on his descendants' visions. Moving on at number 8, we have the stereotypes. There were so many stereotypes prevalent throughout this whole film. For starters, the most obvious stereotype is that bunnies can't be cops. In fact, Judy is often made fun of for being a bunny cop, and no one takes her seriously despite her qualifications. Bunnies are said to only grow up to be carrot farmers, nothing else. Then we have Nick Wilde, who he believes he can't be anything more than a sly fox. When he was younger, he wasn't allowed to join the Junior Ranger Scouts because all the members were prey and he's a predator. As a result, he was tormented for this. So this movie is said to highlight the negative impacts that stereotypes can have on individuals. Coming in at number 7, we have the scaredy cat. At the beginning of the movie, we see that Judy's dad is terrified of predators, and he emphasizes that he's extremely terrified of foxes in particular. Now, why is this? The only time when predators were a real threat were thousands of years ago. But now they live in harmony together. But why is he still afraid of them? Well, in the movie, he says being a predator will always be a part of fox's biology. Therefore, people theorize that something has happened to one of his family members that has made him permanently terrified of foxes. Theory goes that one day his grandparents were both killed by foxes that could no longer control their predator urges. Since that accident, he believes that at some point, all predators will reach their breaking point and attack prey. In our 6th spot, we have the brainless animals. So there is something undeniably wrong with the hamsters in the movie. During one of the scenes, we see that the hamsters not only dress the same, but they also work in the same building and they all copy each other's movements. If one hamster does something, then they all follow along simultaneously. So what's the deal? Well, people have come up with a theory that they are being brainwashed. Now, they are being controlled by a higher power that tells them exactly what to do and how to act. So now they're just little brainless hamsters roaming around doing dark deeds for some mystery man. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the dirty room. So one of the more inappropriate moments in this movie is when Judy and Nick visit the Mystic Spring Oasis. Basically, it's a naturalist resort, meaning everyone there is completely naked. And you can tell that Judy is very disturbed and uncomfortable by this. At the resort, we clearly see animals doing yoga with their legs spread open and then they're bending down. It's a lot, especially for a kids movie. We see other characters rubbing themselves against trees while nude. But turns out that this resort might actually be specifically for animals that want to crossbreed, meaning they want to mate with a partner that's not part of their species. So they go to the resort to try and find a new partner, meaning that they potentially could create some weird hybrid animals like an elephant and a giraffe, a girelephant, or a giraffe. I don't know. In our fourth spot, we have Mr. Otterton. Now, what I found strange was how all the mammals that turned savage were large predators. But then you have Mr. Otterton, a super small otter. Technically, yes, otters are predators since they eat fish and sometimes birds and small rabbits. But why would Bellwether pick Mr. Otterton to become savage when all the other animals that she chose were big, terrifying predators? Well, in the movie, Mr. Big says Otterton is my florist. Well, it seems like Mr. Otterton might have been able to link the night howlers to the predator's savage behaviors. Since he's a florist, he would know a lot about night howlers and their effects on animals. So it may just be that Bellwether targeted him so that he wouldn't interfere with her plans. What a clever little villain. Making our way down the list at number 3, we have the abusive relationship. So at the beginning of the movie, we find out that Judy is rooming next to a couple named Bucky and Pronk. They are a gay married couple. Jared Bush, co-director and writer of Zootopia, confirmed this by posting on Twitter saying they are a gay married couple. But they don't yell at each other because they're gay. They yell because they're real. Well, it seems like they're in an abusive relationship. They're constantly yelling at each other and arguing. They seem very unhappy in their current situation. And I mean, it doesn't seem healthy at all. Jared's tweet made it sound like these characters are based off of a real couple that he knows, meaning that their abusive relationship is potentially real. Moving on to number 2, we have the abandoned hospital. When Judy and Nick follow their leads to Cliffside, they discover all of the missing animals. They are all savage and are locked behind cages. But the first room that they broke into is a little strange. It was an abandoned hospital room with old beds pushed to the side. So what was this room originally used for? Well, this theory states that the room used to be where experiments were being done on predators. Back in the day when they were trying to strip predators of their ways, they would take groups of them and run experiments on them. Basically, they wanted to see that if they removed a piece of their brain, would it remove their biological need to attack prey. It's also the place that they would contain any animal that they believed were slipping back into their old savage ways. And in our number 1 spot, we have the corrupt cop. The Reddit user LM Red Wolf did some detective work for this next theory. He believes that Officer McHorn, who is the rhino that Judy sat beside on her first day of work, is a corrupt cop. So let's look at the facts. During that scene, the chief hands out the case files for the 14 missing mammals. He assigned Officer McHorn to Sahara Square. This is located quite far from Savannah Central, where Judy was assigned parking duty. But during the scene where Judy is chasing Duke Weaselton, Officer McHorn shows up to catch him. Well, how did he get there that fast? According to the map of the city, it is 3 bridges and countless blocks away. So how did he manage to do that one? Well, this makes it seem like he was in on the plan. He was there to make sure that Duke Weaselton got away with the night howlers. But Judy ended up ruining his plan.